Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Threat Intel Weekly. My name is Josh Bacon. We're here to talk you through the biggest stories in cybersecurity this last couple of weeks. With me, a couple security engineers you might know, Michael Gay, Chase Carlin,
Good morning.
Akila. Let's just get right into it. Have you guys been following this Twitter thing, by the way?
Who hasn't been?
Who hasn't been?
Exactly. I've never once seen a guy who inspires me to be a CEO more than Elon Musk. Because I'm serious. The other CEOs, you look at them and you're like, I couldn't do that. I could do what Elon's doing. I could be a CEO. This dude turned off 2FA.
Probably other things that no one else is aware of, but
Oh yeah.
it's fun times, I guess.
It's amazingly fun times. Man's getting into arguments with his engineers on Twitter
And firing them.
and then firing them. I've never been so scared to be an engineer. All right, let's go ahead and get into it. I hope none of you are Australian. Hey, speaking of Australia, we did just get our first little bit of viewer mail. They sent it to me through a docx with macros, which I thought was a little weak. All right, let's just get into it. All right.
Moving on.
Australia was hit this week by a massive data breach. It looks like I think 9.7 million people had healthcare information breached after MetaBank refused to pay a ransom of $9.7 million. Obviously, we here agree with them not paying the ransom. What we probably don't agree with them was allowing these initial vectors to make their way in the first place. This is what regulators are for. But this is, I think, the third country in the last couple of months that a large amount of their citizens have had personal information leaked due to poor government security. Guys, I'm starting to think governments don't put very much budget into security.
You're probably not wrong. Security is snake oil to some people, and that it'll always be that way until the worst thing happens, right? And that, I guess, can be considered ransomware or any sort of outbreak. Crypto miners on all your endpoints, right?
Of course.
Any sort of thing.
But we got no problem dropping $12 million on Tomahawk missiles. Just saying.
We have no problem with that. I always think of cybersecurity like a good bass player. When they're doing their job, you don't really notice them at all. But when they're not doing their job, it becomes probably the worst part of the environment. And in this case, there just wasn't enough due diligence done by the Australian government to ensure that this wasn't something that was going to happen. Here in America, we have many regulatory requirements that if you're going to run a business like this, you have to abide by. I'm sure they have that in Australia as well. Obviously, it's not a foolproof system here in America, as we well know. But that's what those programs are designed to stop, things like this. It's not just to protect your company, it's to protect the people that your company serves. Does anyone have any other comments about this? I just feel like I'm shaming MetaBank at this point.
The real question is, did they have backups?
Did they have backups?
I mean, I think they have two things to worry about, right? First off, they have a breach of PII, personal identifiable information, that is now being sold, I guess, on the dark web. So that's problem number one. Problem number two is they might have gotten hit with ransomware, but what is their strategy of getting back up and running? Like, are they running backups? Are they off-site backups? That the backups get encrypted as well? There must have been a reason why they refused to pay the ransom. And I would imagine that if you refuse to pay, they have some sort of strategy of getting back up and running. So I guess interesting tidbit there.
You would hope. We would definitely hope. Unfortunately, when you're in a situation where PII has been encrypted and PII is the ransom, even if you pay that ransom, you don't know if that PII is safe. And you could end up in a situation like the Uber CEO, as we talked about last time, where you feel the compulsion not to let other people know about this breach because you believe it's been taken care of. And as we know, this could lead to some very terrible outcomes. You guys been into Stable Diffusion?
Obviously, I have.
I know one person on this call has. Michael, how about you go ahead and tell us what happens when you make a Stable Diffusion web UI instance public?
Well, you don't want to do that. Definitely not using the default method that it invites you to use. What if you download automatic 1111's release of Stable Diffusion? When you run it, it prompts you at the end of its batch execution, hey, add this line to your config if you want to share it in public. Don't do that. Don't do that, please. On the download page of Stable Diffusion, it flat out tells you, or it asks you nicely, don't make illegal images with it. If you're sharing Stable Diffusion publicly on the internet and random people can find it, they can generate illegal images.
Mm-hmm.
Don't need to go any further, I think, in explaining what that means. Except for that every image that's generated by Stable Diffusion is at least temporarily written to your hard drive. So if you want people filling your hard drive with illegal images, yeah, go ahead and share your Stable Diffusion publicly.
That feels like a CIA tactic. It really does, of just using someone's public Stable Diffusion to generate illegal imagery, and then, oh, well, you got your warrant suddenly, so.
Yeah.
It just goes to show though, you can compromise an innocent person, right? You're wanting to host your public Stable Diffusion instance for others to use. But let's say that someone doesn't have the hardware to run Stable Diffusion, but yet they want to utilize that software. They want to be able to generate their own images. They don't get in trouble if they decide to generate something illegal, but the person who's wanting to help, right? Others who don't have that hardware, they're the ones getting in trouble. And if something happened to come up, so it's just, it's again, I think just you try to fight the good fight, and sometimes it just doesn't work.
Yeah. At the end of the day, you are responsible for everything that's on your server. In one way or another, if you've allowed someone to anonymously log into your server and add things like that, that is to a large degree on you. You need to ensure that no matter how your servers are configured, they go through the proper route of authentication, authorization, and what's the third A? Stick to those two, and then and then if someone figures out the third,
Okay.
please email me. Oh, thank you. Thank you. All right, let's go ahead and move on. So a Russian software, I think it was Whoop Push, I can't remember the exact name of it, has found its way into thousands of apps across the Google Play and Apple Store. So when interviewed, Max Konev, the CEO of this company, said that he was proud to be Russian, and claimed that he would never hide being Russian, right? The reason this is a big issue, of course, is that being a Russian company, Russia can make any demands of personal information of this company that they need to. But here's the thing. Wolf Push is headquartered in Delaware. Um, so it seems like there is a genuine effort to hide this, but I can't really figure out fully how or why yet. We don't really know if there's any malicious software in it. This is a data processing app for pushing out notifications. The thing that's concerning is that this got to thousands of apps before anyone knew about it. Like I saw the other day, when the Nintendo Switch launched, for instance, right? It had 7 games on it. Now I think the App Store has 11,000, and that's 11,000 games. I would find it hard myself to audit 11,000 lines of code. And obviously there are protections put into the Apple Store and the Switch Store to make sure that you aren't obviously calling directly out to Russian servers and exfiltrating data and all that, but only to a certain extent. 0 days do exist in every piece of software that's ever been developed. So things like this will continue to happen. the issue that we had with this is a lot of the apps that were being utilized were being used directly by our military. So you take a look at TikTok, right? The
Glad you said
Chinese,
that.
yeah, the Chinese military does not need any spies in the U.S. Government because every single like private at a military base has TikTok installed on their phone. Um, we're at a point now where spying is something that you consent to, essentially. So be very careful with everything you're installing on your phones. If you're a company that does MDM and can prevent the installation of a few of these apps, at least temporarily as a band-aid, that might be a good solution. Make sure to I don't really know what the suggestion is here, actually. I was going to say audit the software you bring into your environment, but how would you even know about this? This was a data processing company trying to hide as being registered in Delaware. Um, I don't know how you would find this without being a Reuters journalist.
Just
I think it,
assume that everything is insecure.
I think that's probably for the best at this point.
yeah, that's not a bad ideology, honestly. But I mean, if you think about it from like a security perspective, you either mitigate the risk or you accept the risk. So if you accept the risk of, hey, this app on my phone, let's take TikTok for example, there's been plenty of investigations and lawsuits, and in fact, the US government looking into banning the app in general on US based phones. Like, that says something, right? If there's, I, I don't recall ever seeing an iOS or Google Play application that has been under the same scrutiny that TikTok has. I could
Yeah,
be wrong, but at least the TikTok investigations have been made very public. Like you can find it if you just type in anything on Google related to TikTok. I'm sure if you keep scrolling, you'll see some sort of article about the investigation. So if you accept the risk that hey, they're listening to your conversations, they're pulling data off your phone, whatever it may be, if you accept it, then you accept it. But obviously, the mitigation is to do your own research. Well, first, do your own research. Then you can decide, I'm not going to download this, or I don't care. I don't have anything to hide. And that's what a lot of people do say. There is no reasonable expectation of privacy anymore, it seems, um, which is an interesting topic in itself. But if you don't have anything to hide, sure, that's your prerogative. Download it. It doesn't matter. But just be wary of what you're downloading.
absolutely. I mean, things like thumbprinting can end up creating a much more devastating compounding effect than most people realize. Like when you get a little bit of personal information breach, maybe just a phone number with an email, that's useful for phishing, that's useful for stealing identification, but it's not nearly as useful as when they compile that data with other things they've gotten from you from different sources, and suddenly they have a very full picture of who you are, and it becomes very easy to steal your identity. So be safe out there this week. By the way, real quick, I am a little disappointed in the CIA because we don't have a TikTok in China. Like we're not spying on them. Like
Do
it's
we?
a
Do we though?
I bet we have dark silicon on the processors that run their servers.
You
You
never
think
know.
so? You think so? I mean, we were responsible for Stuxnet, and I'm pretty sure that required some low BIOS codes
Supply
from.
chain.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that required some BIOS codes from a Taiwanese chip manufacturer. So I think we're in there, but I am kind of disappointed. Like we're Americans, we're supposed to be extremely entertaining, and we're getting beat on spyware apps right now. So
Well,
pick it
here's
up,
the thing.
America.
Here's the thing. Everyone else is getting caught. But have you seen the United States getting caught? How do you know? I mean, truthfully, that's an honest question. You
When
don't
somebody
know.
inside the CIA accidentally leaks out all of their top secret hacking tools, that's when you know.
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly. Yeah. And guess what? At that point, they've had version 4.0 already released, and version 1 is the one that got caught. But version 4, it's 3 iterations down the road, and it's gotten better. It's gotten smarter. It's using AI to predict things. You never know. I bet there's some scary stuff out there that would probably make the Snowden revelation be very underwhelming, I would say.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we have Ghidra now. I use Ghidra daily, and that it says when you launched it, you can thank the NSA for this. So
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, it's on the NSA's GitHub. Yeah. That'll be all for us this week. Stay safe this week. Be sure to patch your systems. We've seen a number of problems with the Windows update for October. Tracy will be back to talk about that in a couple weeks, but you may want to check to see which blocks Microsoft has put on what services and delay updating for the foreseeable future. Besides that, stay safe. We will see you in a couple weeks. Take it easy.
Have a good one.